Hello again, my friends. This is William, and I want to thank you for joining me today on Saint Luminus. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and then hit that notification bell so you can be notified the next time I put out a video. A couple of days ago, I rented two guitars. I rented a humbucker single Stratocaster and a Gibson Les Paul. And the reason is because I wanted to hear some different guitars through my setup in here, because I really just have my single Strat and my Jackson Rhodes model with EMGs. Keep in mind, too, that these were rentals, so I don't know who's set them up, who's adjusted the pickup heights, and I also assume as rentals, it's just a stock Stratocaster. It is a made in America Stratocaster, I can say that much, but I assume it's a stock Stratocaster, and the Gibson as well. It's just a stock Gibson Les Paul. Now, my Stratocaster and my Jackson Rhodes have all been set up by David Neely, fairly close by here in Hollywood. So I know that those things have been set up to perfection and to a way that I like. I've got these four guitars, and I decided to try all four out. Just keep switching and listening to what I'm hearing in the room. Try some different settings of my Mark V 25 amplifier and to really hear the differences between these guitars. And I did a small recording. So I want you to listen to them. Before I play them, let me describe to you the setup that you're going to listen to. This is my Mark V 25 amplifier with a Lone Star 23-inch 1x12 cabinet. I have it in the fat mode. The gain is dimed. It's all the way to 11. And the volume, I had it adjusted to a point that I felt it was comfortably loud in this room. I have it mic'd, the speaker cabinet is mic'd up with an SM57 right in the middle, and it's set up in such a way to have a warm sound, and it's just on the verge of clipping. It's like a warm clean, but if I dig in, the amp starts to clip a little bit, so that's what you're going to hear. I also wanted to be very consistent with this, so I only played the bridge pickups. That's all you're going to hear. It's the bridge pickup. The tone knob is set to 10. Normally, that's not how I would play, but the thing is, I don't know what kind of caps are in there. There's so many variables. I have to keep things consistent. So I just played the bridge pickup for you to listen to. Everything was turned up to 10, the tone knobs and the volume to 10, and that's what you're going to listen to. Again, there's way too many variables, so we're going to try this. And now listen to these four different guitars. All right, go listen to them again if you must. So yeah, go ahead, stop it. Go back and listen to it again. Did you hear a difference? Was there one you liked best? Let me know in the comments and we'll discuss some more here. All right, here's my thoughts on it, at least as far as me listening to it in the room. Just not listening to the recording, but how it felt in my fingers, what I heard here in the room. Let's start with the humbucker single Strat. That was the rental. That was the most disappointing out of all four guitars. There was a weird sort of EQ whenever I was playing on the D string to the G string. Somewhere in there was just a very odd EQ sound that was going there. So suddenly things changed. But by the time if I keep going to the B and the E string, it was fine. The low E and the A is fine. But somewhere in those two strings in the middle, there was something weird going on that. I don't know. It was just too stark of a difference. Now, it could be that this guitar wasn't set up properly because I have no idea. It's a rental. I don't know. And it could be that the pickups needed some adjustment. Again, I don't know the history of this guitar. I don't know if it gets set up every time that it goes up for rental. I kind of guess not, but I don't know. And I also believe that these were stock pickups. Now, if I had to go play this guitar out live, do a gig with it live, I can totally make it work. I can make some adjustments with the tone knob and some adjustments on the amp, and I can totally live with it and play the gig and just be fine. I would have a good night playing with that guitar. But if I'm given the choice, I would definitely choose something else. Now, let's go with my Strat, with single coils. Of course, I think I'm just biased because this is what I play every day. I'm used to the sounds. I love it. Compared to the other guitars, I was surprised at how hot my Stratocaster is. And this makes a lot of sense because I have Kinman Big 9.0 pickups installed in all three positions. And according to Kinman, the Big 9.0s are wound a little hotter than your typical single coil pickups in Stratocasters, and he's not kidding. I would say, now just listening to the bridge pickup, I would say that the bridge pickup the single coil bridge pickup on my Stratocaster is just about as hot as the bridge pickup in the Les Paul, which is a humbucker. And typically humbuckers are going to be a little bit hotter. There's other things going on with them, but they're going to be a little bit hotter than single coils. But these Kinman pickups, they are definitely wound hotter because I didn't notice a significant difference in terms of how hot it was. In fact, I'd say it could be that the Les Paul seemed a little hotter, and maybe it's because of the frequencies that are accentuated in a Les Paul and the humbucker. I don't know, but I found in terms of output level of the guitars that the single coil, my Strat, and the Les Paul were fairly even. I might give a little tiny bit to the Les Paul, but not a whole lot. It wasn't a substantial difference. But regardless, these pickups pack a lot of punch. Now, one thing too about pickups, their output is also dependent on how the guitar is set up. Now, the Stratocaster, I have it set up by a guy here in Hollywood named David Neely, and so who I highly, highly recommend. Look up David Neely. I actually have him set it up for tone. I want good tone. I don't want a hot output. I want good tone out of the Stratocaster, which he totally gets. So he knows how to adjust these things to perfection. So I have it done by him. And indeed, it sounds great. Next is the Les Paul. You guys may not believe this, but this is the first time I've actually sat down with a Les Paul and really dug in and explored it. Now, if this is a stock Les Paul, I have to admit I'm very impressed. I loved playing it. The sound was fun. Playing with it was fun. Being able to mix the neck and bridge pickup and have that adjustment with tone knobs and volume is a lot of fun. And of course, the old, the gating effect you can have with that switch, if you turn off the volume one of the pickups and that is like super fun. I will have to say that the Les Paul sounded exactly how I expected a Les Paul to sound. The one thing that is funny, you guys really should have seen it here, is as I'm playing stuff, I keep trying to reach for the tremolo bar because I do that in expressing myself on the Stratocaster, sometimes use that tremolo bar to do certain things. And I just wanted to do that on the Les Paul. And as you know, Les Pauls don't have the tremolo arm. So I'm sure it's quite a look for me to go down there and there's nothing there. Ugh. My only complaint really is that the damn G string kept going out of tune after a few minutes. It could be that the Les Paul needs to be set up a little better so that string is not going out of tune so often. I really don't know. It could be due to all sorts of reasons. What I really want to do, though, is play a vintage Les Paul with P90 pickups. I'd really love to experience that. So all in all, I wouldn't mind having the Les Paul in my arsenal. It certainly has a little mid-range, softer character than the Stratocaster. So all in all, the Les Paul was really, really fun. The Jackson Rhodes with EMG pickups. This guitar is really good at one thing, and that's heavy metal. The Jackson was the hottest output out of all the guitars, and of course, because the EMGs are active pickups, so of course, it's going to push the amp much more than these the guitars with the passive pickups. Also, it's much brighter. The EMGs are going to be much brighter than any of these other guitars, and it really comes through on the Mesa Mark V. In fact, if I set the presence on the Mark V to sound just right and chimey with, say, my Stratocaster, if I go ahead and plug the Jackson in there, especially hitting those higher notes, ooh, yeah, it's getting a little shrill. It was definitely like, oh yeah, it's starting to get a little ear-piercing shrill, but that's the nature of the EMGs. Now, could I get the Jackson to do other styles besides heavy metal? Sure, of course. I could tweak a little bit the tone knob, the mixture of the EMGs, and do some tweaking at the Mark 525, and I can play some rock and some blues, do some clean chordal stuff with it. Sure. But why not save the Jackson for what it does best? Roar with a hot metal explosion. Now, I also tried these guitars in the second channel, the Mark 525, in the Mark II C Plus mode with a lot of gain. I didn't dime the gain, but the gain was up high because I wanted to hear these guitars in the context of a soaring high gain lead. Here's the bottom line with that. With that very high gain, the differences between the guitars were very little. They were way more similar than I thought they would be in that high gain context. And it kind of makes sense because in Mesa Boogie's manual for the Mark 525, it talks about when you keep turning up the gain, that there's so much saturation going on that the tone knobs on the Mark 525 don't start having less and less difference in the tonality, and you're going to hear more of the voice of the channel, in this case the Mark II C Plus mode, because the tone knobs won't have that much of difference. And so I noticed the same thing. The guitars were having little difference in the voicing when the gain is up high. So I just found that really, really interesting. I found the differences between the guitars to come up more with a mid-gain sound, a crunchy sound, and that sound from the clips you had listened to, where that low mid-gain, where it's a nice warm, clean, but if you dig in, it starts to crunch up a little bit. That's where I found that they really started to shine. For example, I didn't hear it so much in the recording, but I felt it here in the room, that when I dug in, that each of the guitars accented that note where I dug in a little differently. The Stratocaster, the EMG really jumped out, were bright when you dug in. My Stratocaster, the rented Stratocaster with the humbucker, that did a weird, it compressed it. When I dug in, it compressed it and it rounded off the note a little more. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it didn't get the note to jump out like I would want it to. And the Les Paul also did that. It compressed it a little bit, not as much as the Strat, but rounded it off just a little bit, which I thought was fun. It was very fun. It was a different reaction than I was expecting, but it's something I could work with and have some fun with. I also, since I was having so much fun with the Les Paul, I thought, let me put it in a crunchy, Marshall Plexi sound. The Mesa doesn't do it's not a clone of a Plexi. It's never going to sound exactly like a Plexi, but I wanted to get into that British mid-range bark of what a plexi could do. And yeah, I was going for like the Angus Young AC/DC, Malcolm Young chords. And yeah, actually, I didn't sit there for hours tweaking it, but I was surprised at how close I was getting to that kind of sound and feel. It was really fun just to play some simple little AC/DC riffs and like hear that kind of Marshall Plexi 70s, 80s Gibson vibe come through on the humbuckers. Just super fun. Now, I could do fine with any of those guitars and my Mesa Boogie Mark V for a gig or for recording. But if I had to choose, I would choose my single Stratocaster and that Gibson Les Paul any day of the week. Those were the most fun to play. Further, I was just really, really fascinated by no matter what I was doing with each of those guitars, in the end, I still sounded like me. As much as I was hoping that a different guitar would add a substantial change in tonality to lead me into a much different direction in playing, these different guitars did not. I still sounded like me. In the end, the difference between the four guitars was much less than I expected. Like I said, I really expected a bigger difference between a Les Paul with the humbuckers and my Stratocaster with all single coils. Is there a difference? Yes, of course there's a difference, but I just expected to be a much bigger difference. So the differences, there were little differences, and I would use a Les Paul for a certain thing, and I would use the Stratocaster for a certain thing. But all in all, for what I'm doing, the differences are very small, and that kind of surprised me. Like I said, I really expected a much bigger difference between the two of them, and I also expected a difference between a Stratocaster with the humbucker. It wasn't that drastic of a difference. So there you go, my friends. 4 different guitars. What did you think? Did you hear a difference between them in the recording? Remember, that's a recording. It's not, I can't really capture what I'm hearing in the room. There's just no way to really accurately do that than have you come here and sit with me inside the room. That's a very different sound and feeling. How about yourself? Have you sat there with different guitars, vastly different guitars, and heard the difference? Did it change the way you play drastically? I don't mean a little change, but I mean a big change. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys experienced when you tried different guitars. Have you tried like a Les Paul and a Stratocaster and really listened? Were they drastically different for you? Could you have done some tweaking to get them a little more similar? I think I could definitely do that. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, please subscribe for more content like this. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified the next time I'm on. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys, and have a great day.